hit start and go. Ollie, how are you?
Very well, thank you. Yeah.
Good.
How are you?
Thank you. I'm good. Thank you. Well, I'm suffering a bit of hay fever.
No.
I don't usually get it, but for some reason this year it's just kicking the shit out of me.
Yeah, I find it can be on and off. I grew up sort of in the country, not really, but in down south in the middle of the South Downs and surrounded by countryside, and I never suffered from hay fever.
Yeah.
And then I moved to London,
and now
within a year I started getting hay fever, and I don't get it. I think it can come on at any time of year, can't it?
Yeah, I never had it as a child, and then in my mid 30s, one summer I was just like, "What the fuck is up with my face?" And my wife said, "It's like hay fever." I said, "But I don't get hay fever." So, well, you do now.
Yeah. It's crazy.
It's bizarre. Like something you've lived with for 35 years, and then
I know
one summer you're just like, "Oh no, I don't like this."
Yeah,
it's bizarre. So how's
very strange to these?
Yeah, how's life? How's playing? What are you up to at the moment?
Oh, what am I up to? Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, as you probably know, I do a lot of West End stuff, like depping around and that sort of thing. That takes up the majority of my sort of professional life.
Yeah.
A few other projects going on. I've got this project called the 1971 Show, which we're doing a gig in Cheltenham tomorrow night and in a couple of weeks, which is great. So that's ticking along. What else have I got going on? I've been doing this Led Zeppelin symphonic show the last couple of years.
Okay.
Which so we get to travel around the world and play the music of Led Zeppelin.
Wow!
With the symphony orchestra.
That sounds incredible.
Cool. Yeah, it's a good gig. Bit of fun, and great to travel around and see a few places and just generally have a bit of fun.
When we say travel around and see places, are we talking places that are other than the tour bus, the hotel, and the?
Not really.
Venue? No,
I mean, depending on how much time you have, yeah. But yeah, it can be very much sort of in and out, and
yeah.
But generally, you sort of get there a day early, so you can sort of get out and taste some of the local cuisine,
yeah,
and a few of the drinks and whatever, and a few more of the drinks. But yeah, so that's cool. Other than that, yeah, studio stuff,
okay.
In the studio, trying to get creative.
Yeah,
been on a bit of a journey this year. From the beginning of the year, I sort of promised myself that I get a bit more active on social media, but not really as in sort of taking the social media side of it really seriously, but using it as a kind of a platform to get creative and put something out. As in, I'm probably not explaining it very well, but I think doing the sort of the show thing that I've been doing for a long time, and going and playing other people's music a lot, which we do as sort of hired musicians.
Yeah.
You tend to forget about being creative yourself.
Yeah.
Or that's not true for everyone, but that's certainly true for me and a lot of the guys that I work with, and everyone's sort of saying, yeah, I'd love to do something a bit more creative, but it's time, and life gets in the way. And if you've, like yourself and myself, you've got kids and all the rest of it, it's making time for that stuff is really hard, and having the energy.
That's the thing that I struggle with.
It is really difficult, because kids sap your energy.
Yep.
No, they're great. It's brilliant, but it's life saps your energy, when you're when you're busy and you're doing stuff. And so it's very easy for years to go by, in my case, where I've produced nothing creative for myself. So I thought at the beginning of this year I would make a conscious effort to, not overdo it, just make it sort of a regular weekly or bi-weekly thing where I sit down and I write something, I produce something, whatever it is, and just put it out on social media, because that means that I've drawn a line under it.
Yeah, yeah.
And someone's heard it, because the other problem is you can get creative, but things just stay on my hard drive, and no one ever hears it. The world never hears anything that I've created, and that's a shame for me. So I decided to start doing a bit of that.
Okay.
Which is cool,
Yeah.
I'm trying to keep it up.
That's what brought me to you. Is a reel popped up, and it was something along the lines of, I've got an hour to be creative. What can I make in an hour? And I was like, okay, let's see what he can do. I was like, okay. And I think it was like a little funk tune.
Yeah, it was just a little basic kind of write a beat type thing, a bit of drums, a bit of keyboards, and see what you can come up with, because that's an hour is not a very long period of time. And when you're, like I said, when you're busy, you might only be able to find an hour, and you've got to try and do something in that hour. And I've, in the past, wasted a lot of time when I was younger and I didn't have all these responsibilities, just sat in the studio for hours trying to come up with something and sometimes coming up with nothing.
Yeah.
So I think the point of that particular video was to, just about sort of putting time limits on things and trying to actually be creative within that hour or so.
Yeah.
So that's kind of a little bit of a journey, and it's progressing. I'm starting to feel a bit better about everything. It sort of has a knock-on effect for me on the way you see the other jobs, because now that bit of creativity, that scratch is being itched. Is that the right thing to say?
I think
that itch is being scratched. That's the way around it is.
Yeah.
It makes you feel better about going and playing other people's music.
Yeah.
I'm happier doing that stuff now because I know that I've made a start in working on myself. Yeah, I don't know if that makes sense.
Yeah, no. I mean, I think it's the start of this term. I do a lot of teaching in schools. And my teaching was kind of sporadic across the week. And so I've compacted everything into Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. And I thought, well, that gives me Thursday and Friday. Like if I'm gigging Friday and Saturday, that's what I'm doing Friday and Saturday. That gives me Thursday to try and do something as creative as I can, whether it's writing, whether it's doing some recording. And so far it's gone shit because I had two new shows just land on my lap. I was like, okay, well, my Thursdays are going to be spent going through the pads for these shows.
Well, that's the thing. That stuff takes time.
Yeah.
And I think that was the thing for me last year as well. I learned about 6 shows throughout the whole year.
Yeah.
To go in depth on, and that, which is great. I'm really, absolutely grateful for that work. But that stuff takes time, for that stuff to sink in.
Yeah.
It does take up a lot of your daytime, and if you're not careful, that creative slot that you've assigned to it can go by the wayside. And then it's been 2 weeks, and it's been 3 weeks, and all of a sudden you're out of the habit of doing it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I've been trying to do that, and really it's kind of, if something comes out of it and they end up doing a bit more of that stuff, then great. But that's not kind of the reason why I'm doing it. I'm really doing it for myself. Get my head into a space where I'm happy in everything that I'm doing.
Yeah, I mean, I love the idea of putting a time constraint on it, because then you have to force yourself to be creative. And I think creativity is often assumed as something that just comes to you at a moment that needs to then be jumped upon. But I view it as a skill, and if you practice it,
definitely
you can get into that zone quite quickly.
Yeah, I think that's a misconception, isn't it? I think that's a misconception that, you can't rush creativity and all that sort of thing. I don't think that's true. I think because everyone is creative, and it's just about giving yourself a chance to. I mean that's the other juxtaposition of giving yourself like an hour to do something, because you don't really have time to play.
Yeah,
and creativity is also about having the time to play, and that's why when I was younger and had no responsibilities and I could spend hours in the studio and produce nothing. Yeah. At least at that time, I was playing. I was investigating what works and what didn't. So it means that now, if I've got an hour, I know kind of where I'm going in terms of like, okay, I'm not going to waste time trying to find a drum sound or whatever, because I haven't got time to do that.
Yeah.
So you can get straight to it. Yeah.
And is that something that you're doing on a weekly basis?
Trying to. And let's not forget, this is also alongside trying to practice instruments and get better at doing that, which we never feel like we're ever as good as we want to be. And that's, I've accepted that now, that used to get to me a bit. And I think
especially when you see 12-year-old kids from Japan blazing through Yngwie Malmsteen pieces.
Great. Love all that. That's entertainment. Great. Yeah. But could they play Moulin Rouge on a Friday night? Probably not.
It's, I guess that's the acid test. It's like, great, can you play Brown Eyed Girl?
Yeah. To a bunch of drunk wedding guests. Yeah.
with someone trying to grab the microphone off you. And,
throwing up on the monitor.
Yeah. So what shows are you depping on?
So I dip on, I've got Hamilton, Moulin Rouge. What else do I do? The Devil Wears Prada, MJ the Musical.
Okay.
and Mean Girls, which is closing in a couple of weeks.
Okay. Oh, you must know Alex Ward.
I don't know Alex Ward. No.
Oh, really? Okay.
No,
Because he
I've heard
he
his
dips on
name.
it too.
I've heard his name, but I haven't worked with him. No.
Oh, right. Okay. I thought you might have crossed paths. Yeah, he's apparently he dips on Mean Girls as well.
Right. Okay. Cool.
So
that may be where I've heard his name. Yeah.
Yeah, he's great. He's lovely guy. And how did you get into that the West End depping thing?
Well, how long have we got?
I'll give you 3 minutes.
3 minutes. The abridged history of how I got into the West End. I mean, I've always done theatre since I was at school, but just played for like a school concert, a school theatre show or something like that, right? And then I think when I left school, I couldn't really read on guitar. I think a lot of people couldn't. I was brought up learning tabs.
Mm-hmm.
I think I just didn't have the right teacher, maybe, or whatever it is. But it's just an easy way of learning the guitar and getting started, isn't it? So I did sort of A levels and music, and I think I got involved with an orchestra and got involved. That's it. I got involved with like some Amdram type situation through friends that I was at college with that were also playing instruments. Come over and do this show. It's like, okay, cool. 50 quid a week or something.
Yeah,
something awful like that. But of course, you got to read. You've got to read and learn how to read. So I kind of upped my game then and just thought, well, I'm going to learn how to read this. And then, because we're all mates, I don't think we were that good, really. I think we thought we were really good. You go and do another one, a couple of months later. So you sort of this snowball effect of doing show after show, like in the Amdrams, and so your reading gets better.
Mm.
And then I went to college and all that and did all that. So, and all the time I was doing that, I started picking up a few bits and pieces for the college or people outside of college because I could read, because I was a reading guitarist, right? And then I left all that behind, left college, thought, fuck this, I don't want to do jazz music, and got into production. And I did that for about 10 years. But that I was doing like pantos and things like that at Christmas. I was still sort of playing a bit and doing the odd Amdram here and there. And so I always had the theatre thing. But the point I'm trying to make is that those contacts that I made at college when I was in London were then people that I could call upon, people like Tommy, for example, and say, look, hey, can I come and sit in? And, when the time was right to go, okay, I'm going to go and make a go of this, to go back into town and try and sort of pick up a few things. And then a show just somehow, I don't know how it happened, but it sort of fell into my lap. And I got onto that, weirdly, as an assistant MD. Well, not weirdly, because I play keys as well.
Yeah.
And I sort of used that as a catalyst to move to London and do that. And then when that closed after 6 months, I was like, okay, either I can move out of London and go back to doing what I was doing, or I can stick it out and try and pick up some other work. And of course, having done that show, you have a bit of a calling card to say, hey, look, I'm around. Do you need anyone to dep? And then, you pick up one, and if you do a good job, you get another one, and people get to know your name. And that's kind of how it works.
Yeah.
I think. Okay. Well, that's how it used to work.
Yeah. And how is your
reading? Was that 3 minutes?
That was, well within. How is your reading?
How is it now?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's good. Yeah. Good. I mean, I very rarely nowadays get put in a situation where someone just gives me a chart and says, look, read that.
Yeah.
That's when you're learning a show, obviously you learn it. So your reading's good. Yeah, I can have a flick through it and read it a bit, but you still have to learn it. Yeah. So by the time you've learned it, or by the time you spent a couple of weeks on it, you're not really reading it anymore. Do you know what I'm saying? So to test someone's ability of reading, you've kind of got to sit down with something that you've never seen before and really try and play it correctly.
Yeah.
But I haven't done that for a while. So in answer to your question, I don't know what my reading's like. No, I could. Yeah, it's good enough. I think it's good enough.
Yeah. Okay. And what was your way into music? What brought you to playing?
It was a musical family. I grew up in. My mum was singing she used to sing in a choir, and my dad's side of the family were musical. My aunties and uncles played instruments. My grandmother was a piano teacher.
Okay.
She never taught me, but that was, so I think there was definitely a pressure from my mum's mum to kind of, you've got to let them learn instruments and all that. Yeah. My sisters, that is. So I started learning piano when I was a kid, And then, of course, it was like every time Grandma came down, it's like, oh, you've got to play something for her, really? She doesn't want to hear that. Yeah. She doesn't want to hear Fur Elise, or whatever it was. Yeah. So that was, it was definitely a music heavy family. And then, of course, my mum, being really into classical music, would be playing classical music on the hi-fi all the time. Yeah. And my dad would be playing the Beatles and all of that stuff. So music was definitely it was a thing, And my sisters learned instruments, but I was the one that kind of really just took it on myself and got excited about it, and that's I think that's the key when learning an instrument or any music, is that you can have lessons and have your parents going, oh, you must practice and all the rest of it, which is cool, but unless you're really into it, I think the kids, the people that get really good at music are the people that are really nerdy about it and take time outside of having a lesson to investigate music for themselves. Yeah. So it's not just about going and have your piano lesson or guitar lesson and just play that and then go back next week. It's like all the time in between that, you're going, yeah, but what about this and what about that? And trying to do all that. And that's the kid I was. I was super, super into it. I wanted to be Eric Clapton or something. I don't know. Back then.
Yeah, I mean, I teach a lot of kids. Most of my students are all kids around sort of junior school age, and there's 2 or 3 who do just that. They're like, I'll give them the thing to do. They'll come back. They go, either they've done it or they go, look, I gave this a go, but I actually heard this song. I was like, can we have a look at this? I'm like, absolutely we can. And there was one kid that brought his own music book at the music shop and started teaching himself the songs from the book.
Great.
And I was in the lesson. He started playing something. I was like, is that, what song's that? They went, oh, it's a Doors song. I was like, where'd you learn that? He said, oh, from this music book. I was like, where'd you get that? He said, oh, I bought it at the shop. I was like, fucking brilliant. Let's have a look. And so,
good for you, man.
And I was like, that's amazing. I said, and I emailed his mum and said, look, the difference between the kids that play and do this are the kids who are doing what your son's just done.
Yeah.
And they're going out and they're investigating. And she was like, oh, because we were really worried that you'd be upset that he was. I was like, no, the opposite.
Quite the opposite, yeah.
I would want all my students to go out. I would rather all my students come back the following week and say, I didn't do the thing you asked me to do, but I did do this off my own back. I'd be like, that's what I want.
And that's exactly it, man. And that's exactly it. And there, if you speak to anyone that I work with, or any of us work with on a daily basis, they're all that kid. They're all that kid who was so passionate about it.
Yeah.
That it became the only thing that they really cared about.
Yeah.
And I think that's, I'm sure there are exceptions to the rule, but I think that's kind of that's the headspace and the attitude that you need in order to succeed in this industry. You have to be so into it and love it.
Yeah.
Even on bad days, you still love what you're doing.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that playing Wonderwall again for the umpteenth time is like, okay, I can't really get excited about this, but they're getting excited about it.
Yeah.
It's
exactly.
Yeah, it's an odd thing. Like, I didn't start properly playing until I was about 17.
Really?
And I don't think I left the house until I was 20. It's like, maybe I should start going outside. Where are all my friends gone?
Oh, I never had any.
Yeah, that was the sacrifice.
Yeah.
So
I don't think it was a sacrifice. For me, at the time, it didn't feel like a sacrifice.
No,
I think,
no.
And a lot
looking back,
it's just what I wanted to do. I'm a natural introvert, right? I've taught. I think a lot of musicians are. A lot of artistic people are.
Yeah.
Or creative people are. So that didn't bother me. Sitting on my own and working out some Eric Clapton thing or whatever. I keep mentioning Eric Clapton, but there was loads of influences, or at least trying to do it.
Yeah.
Not to say I didn't have friends, because I did. I did have friends. I did have friends.
Yeah.
I keep telling myself that. But yeah, so that's how I got into music. So it was just a thing, and I even remember being at school and like them all saying at school, also so and so, what do you want to do? Oh, I don't know what I'm going to do when I'm older. And every time it got to, I was just like, I know what I want to do. I want to do music. At the time I was like, I'm going to be on top of the pops. When I'm, unfortunately, by the time I got old enough to be on top of the pops,
they'd stopped it.
They'd stopped it. So I was a bit, But you know what I'm saying? Like I had a very clear direction of what I wanted to do in my life, and that was music. 100%.
Yeah.
There was never any doubt.
Yeah, I mean that's
whatever form that took,
I mean it's great that it took a hold.
Yeah,
so
well, I feel very lucky that I even remember thinking that then, when there was all those other kids sort of saying I don't know what to do with my life. I remember feeling quite grateful then that I did know.
Yeah, and so a musical family, lessons. You mentioned college.
College, yeah, I did a sort of A level, sort of music tech type thing, and then went on to Trinity College of Music, where I did a jazz degree.
Okay.
Which I just thought at the time, I don't want to ever have any regrets, but I think sort of in retrospect, I probably should have gone and done like one of those pop courses or something like that. But
yeah,
I don't know, maybe not. If I had, maybe I wouldn't be doing what I'm doing now.
And how was the jazz course?
It was interesting.
Okay.
No, it was good. I mean, it was all what you made of it, like anything. At that level, there weren't people holding your hands through it. And I think I might have struggled a little bit with that. Because I'm the sort of person that, if you just tell me what to do and I'll do it. And I'll do it to the best of my ability. But it was a bit more, let's play some standards, man.
Yeah.
Okay, I need a bit more. I need a bit more than
which
that.
one?
Yeah, which one? So it was good. It was good. I got some really good guitar tuition out of that. Dave Cliff, I don't know if you've heard of him.
No.
Great jazz player. Mike Outram I had for a couple of years.
Okay.
And I remember not understanding anything he was telling me. Just went completely over my head, but he was great. So I did that. And then I did a jazz degree, not because I wanted to go and play in Ronnie Scott's every night and do jazz. I didn't want to be a jazz player.
Yeah.
Ironically, I wanted to just learn more about music and get deeper into like harmony and all the rest of it. And I definitely got that out of it. So yes, I did that. And that was a 4-year course. It was quite long. So by the end of that, I was a bit sick of listening to jazz, to be honest.
Right.
And I met my wife, who was then my girlfriend, obviously, and she was sort of with a record label, writing and stuff like that. And I just suddenly thought, I'm going to get into this. It's a complete I'm sick of this. I'm going to go and do this.
Yeah.
And got into learning how to produce. And this was like 2005 or something. So people were just starting to do a lot of stuff all on the computer,
Yeah.
That was when it was really taking off with software. And so I could actually do it at home and learn how to produce music. And it took a while,
Yeah.
And then I started, the people she was working with, a record company, heard some of my stuff and were like, well, can we send some artists down to you to start writing? So we did that for 10 years.
Wow, that's cool.
Sort of developing artists and stuff. No one you would have heard of or anyone big. And I think that was the problem. We did that for about 10 years. Started doing my own projects, even did a bit of DJing off the back when we went, festivals and stuff like that. So a completely different world from playing the guitar and jazz college. It was just so a bit of a journey away.
I mean, it's a sharp left turn out of jazz Trinity College.
Big time, yeah.
To DJing festivals.
Yeah.
But I think that's the thing that music can do. Is if you get bored of something or something, you get sick of something, you can still just do a left turn and continue to work in music, but in a completely different area. You
can. And that's kind of a big thing that I kind of would champion, actually. And if you're trying to talk about getting better, you the idea of your podcast, and I think that to push yourself away from something and out of your comfort zone and into something completely different is a way of getting better, right? I mean, I wouldn't be able to do what I do now and have picked up quite a few of the jobs that I do now if I hadn't just gone, do you know what? I'm going to go and learn how to produce music and just stuck to playing jazz standards.
Yeah,
I wouldn't be doing it, And so what I did was I unconsciously opened up a completely different avenue of work that I can potentially do now.
Yeah.
I do a lot. I do. People send me tracks. They want to do tracks for even like a cruise ship on a whole tracks for a cruise, and I can go and do that and earn some good money off doing that. Backing tracks for things, all sorts of things. So yeah, that's sort of that taking that left turn and leaping out of your comfort zone. I think it's quite important important part of this. It's not, it's about what do you identify as? I do identify as a guitarist, right? I am a guitarist.
Yeah.
But I'm also a keyboard player. I'm also a producer. I'm also a arranger, and I identify as a musician as a whole. So under that umbrella, because I've pushed myself into these little avenues of work, it means that I've got different income streams as well. I'm not just scrabbling around trying to find gigs as a guitarist. And that's not to do that a disservice. If that's what you do, that's cool. But I'm just saying, in terms of getting better, it's not just about getting better on your instrument. It's about getting better in general. What else can I do to? Does that make sense?
Yeah, I mean, I've always said to people that one's interpretation of getting better is just that. It's your interpretation. People have given me the answer that I still sit down with the metronome and do the scale thing and up and down, and that's their interpretation of getting better. Whereas other people, there was one guy, Aaron Forbes, who's the guitarist. No. He said his take on getting better is all mental. It's a state, like it's a mental state. Like, can I be like in a place and a position where I'm mentally healthy to do the job? I mean, he's similar to us. He's got kids, a wife, and he's got all that stuff. So it's a mental thing for him. And then other people, it's purely technique. Other people, it's fucking can I balance the books?
I completely agree, and I think there's in my mind there's if you're thinking about so if we're thinking about the point of this podcast, getting better, there's two sides to it. There's your technical learning an instrument, sitting down, practicing, like you've just said, practicing scales, practicing chords, whatever it is, practicing improvising. That's getting better at your instrument. But there's also another side, a much deeper side, which is getting better as a person. And that's what what you said about this. What was his name?
Aaron Forbes.
Aaron Forbes. Should I have heard of him?
Yeah,
because I'm terrible. Check him out. If he's massive and I haven't heard of him,
I mean, he's not massive. Like he's like a jobbing session guitarist.
Yeah. Right.
I think he teaches at BIM occasionally in London.
Right.
He's worth checking out. He's a great player. He's a lovely guy.
Cool.
Yeah, he's worth checking out.
What I mean is I don't want to embarrass myself.
No.
Because there's plenty of times where someone's mentioned someone really famous and I'm like, who's that? But when things like that happen, I'm just like, look, educate me.
Yeah.
There's obviously something I've missed. It's fine. But yeah, so the other side is a getting better. And this is something, like I said at the beginning, a journey that I've been on since the beginning of the year and even before that. Learning more about myself, really going quite deep into, I'm into like the meditation and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Getting to know how you feel about things as well, getting to know, learn to trust your gut on things and all the rest of it, getting to know yourself as a person. I think is really important because that then has a knock-on effect on your musicianship, your career and playing and all the rest of it. It's not, what I'm saying is it's not just about sitting down and practicing, and I'm sure you know that, but that's kind of my take on it, I think.
Yeah. And how's that take changed over the last 10 or 20 years?
Well, it's changed from thinking that getting better is just about practice.
Yeah.
To being, yes, it's about practice and practicing a lot, which is what I used to do. I wish I had more time to do that now, but to seeing it as a sort of holistic approach of getting yourself better as a person, sorting out things in your life that maybe you're not happy with. And then that has like I said, that has a knock-on effect. Getting to know the music that you're actually really into. I think that's the other thing that, we as jobbing musicians, we end up playing all this other music that's other people's music and we don't necessarily like it.
No. I don't think I would ever sit down and listen to the Witches of Eastwick, which was a show that dropped on my lap about a week ago. I was like, okay. But somebody asked me, like, non-musician friends will ask me, like, what music do you like? I'm like, fucking, I don't know anymore.
That's a horrible question, that.
Because I like everything, but I'm not actually listening to anything for pleasure at the moment because I'm entrenched in these whatever shows that I've got coming up.
It's a real barber question, that, isn't it? When you sit down at the barber's, oh, you're into music? Oh, yeah. What do you mean? You like? I was like, fucking, don't ask me that. Yeah. I don't know. I think, and it's not just about what music you like. It's about what do you like. Who do you like? You know,
yeah.
I'm trying to say is what the investigations I've done into myself has led me to a place where I now sort of actively try and avoid negativity.
Yeah.
Bring myself into a place where, you know, there's positive things around my work and my life. Whereas in the old days, I didn't do that. I just put up with stuff, accepted things. And now I'm in a place where if I'm not happy with that, I'm just like, no, do you know what? I don't want to do this. I'm not interested in that negative person or what they're saying. You know, like remove yourself from that and just carry on with what you're doing and what you like.
Yeah.
You know, I think I'm not sure if I'm making sense. Sometimes I just sort of gabble about things.
I mean, I think certainly as I've gotten older, I've got very little time for that kind of shit. Like, I won't work with certain people just because I know the arseache and the hassle that it's going to be. Even if I've got nothing on and I get offered that gig, I'm like, no, because I know exactly what it's going to be like. We'll turn up, nothing will be ready, nothing will be there. Or it will be the opposite. It will be like constant fucking stress. Be like, I would actually I'd rather sit and watch Terminator 2 with my daughter.
Perfect.
So that's what I'm going to do.
And I hope your daughter's of age that she can watch Terminator 2.
Well, she's
not like 3 or something.
No.
But what you've just said there, and the problem is, how do you feel after that? You feel brought down by that. You feel negative. You feel in a negative headspace.
Actually, I don't. I feel like,
no,
do you know what?
No, but if you were to take that gig on,
oh yes, yeah, I would be like this. Like you're driving home, going, "Well, I'm never fucking doing that again."
Yeah, and then you'd be pissed off the next day, and then you'd be in a bad headspace to get anything, and that has a knock-on effect on your getting better and what you do want to do. You know, and you've almost wasted time and energy on that, which you could have put into. And as we know, life's short, and I think that's the thing. Also, sort of getting older, and you have kids, and you have this overwhelming sense that your time is short.
Yeah.
And that's not to be sort of dark about it, but it is like there's not much time in a day, let alone a week, or, you know. So how do I want to spend that time? I want to spend it doing things that make me happy, that I know are going to improve my skills and, you know, as a musician and a person, and be able to then spend my downtime with my family and whatever, you know, and just keep it simple. And I think you don't get that sometimes when you're younger and you're coming up and you're trying to just take any gig and this and that.
Yeah.
You don't see what those experiences are doing to you. I mean, you have to go through it.
Yeah.
You know, it's important.
Yeah. It's going back. Like, I genuinely, when I do say no to stuff like that, I feel much better. Because it's kind of like you're saying yes to yourself and saying no to someone else.
Exactly. Yeah. And I've got a lot better at doing that recently. And I can always tell, like, I get an offer of something through, I can immediately, if it's a text message or a phone call, I can tell the feeling it gives me. Like, it's a gut instinct, right? I'm like, am I going to be happy doing this? Yes or no? And I know if it's not the right thing. And I've got, whereas in the old days, obviously you just go, yeah, okay, cool, I'll do that. And then ends up in a fucking nightmare. You know.
But those are like you said, those are the experiences that you got to go through.
Absolutely.
I think everyone has to go through it, put through the ringer. The other thing I want to talk about is like learning today. I don't know. Do you teach?
Funnily enough, I've just quit a teaching job that I was doing for the last couple of terms. It was only 1 day a week.
Yeah.
And the reason for that is I used to teach a long time ago, and it was mostly it was all beginners.
Yeah.
At sort of primary school and a bit of secondary school. And I swore I'd never do it again. It just wasn't for me. Not that I can't teach. I feel like I can teach, but my teaching expertise were wasted on these kids. No, I don't mean it like that. I mean, I would love to teach, so this is what I said to myself. I said, I'm never going to teach beginners again. If I ever teach again, it would be at like a higher education institution or something like that, or privately, where I've got people that are already like really good, and I can teach them something else, right? And then this job came up, and it just wasn't. I did it for a couple of terms, but I ended up just teaching beginners again.
Yeah,
and that's not what I want to do. And hats off to people that do that. But and it also links in with the same, what we were talking about a minute ago. It just didn't give me the feeling of like, I want to do this. I don't want to do this. I want to spend this time putting this time into myself and other things that I could be doing. Right. So in a short answer, no, I don't teach.
No. Okay. So no, I was going to say learning today is there seems to be.
But I've taught enough. Yeah.
The gap from going from total beginner to really quite competent on your instrument, it just seems to be getting shorter and shorter and shorter. Like people are able to accelerate their learning. Like everything is available on YouTube for free, whether you wanted to do like Yngwie pieces, Paul Gilbert pickings, whatever it was.
Yeah.
The journey from can't do it to do it is getting shorter and shorter and shorter.
Yeah.
Do you think that something is being missed or lost along the way?
100%.
I mean, it's being lost.
Well, it's a good question. Let me think about it. I think, well, first of all, I would love to know how they're doing that. I'd love to know how they're doing that because, there's certain things I can't do that I'm just like, I don't even know if I'll ever be able to do. I don't know if there's enough time now to do it. So what are you talking about specifically? Like the Japanese kids that are playing Yngwie that you mentioned earlier?
I wasn't.
Take that for example. Is that what you're saying?
We could use that as an example, yeah.
Yeah, so for example, my take on that is they clearly not doing anything else.
Yeah.
So they've got all the time in the world to basically sit and practice that one thing all the time. There's no other way, because no one goes from just not being able to play to being the fastest player in the world or whatever, and the most accurate. No, that's an impossibility. You have to put the time in. So that if they're doing it in such a short space of time, that must be the only thing that they're doing.
Yeah.
Great for them. Brilliant. Yeah. Great for us because it's entertaining. But yeah, there's obviously a lot more holes in their playing or whatever. They probably can't do anything else.
Yeah.
Do you see what I'm saying? That's the only thing they can do.
Yeah. Yeah. So I don't know how you learned. Why do we do that? How did you learn? How did you learn music? Did you have private lessons? I know you said you went off to college, but
before that, when I was a kid and at school, it was piano lessons were with a proper teacher.
Yeah.
Associated boards, graded exams, classical piano.
And then on guitar?
Guitar was sort of lessons at school with a teacher.
Yeah.
And this is exactly a point that I've actually made to people before, and even students, and said that obviously when we were learning, we didn't have YouTube back in the 90s. It didn't even exist. So that thing where you could just go and find anything that you wanted. If I wanted to learn I know you're a Pearl Jam fan.
Yeah.
If I wanted to learn Alive by Pearl Jam, I couldn't just go on YouTube and find it and someone teach me how to do it.
Yeah.
My teacher actually had a Pearl Jam book, and I think he photocopied the page and gave me the tabs, and we probably spent a few weeks trying to learn a little bit of that. I probably attempted the solo and didn't play it very well, but it was enough to kind of give me an insight into that particular tune or whatever. And I think, so I mean, definitely there's a problem there in that information's probably not getting retained.
Yeah.
I've been guilty of that myself. Go on YouTube, find something I really want to learn, practice it for about a day, and then go, oh, there's this other thing
that
I want to learn. And then you completely forget about the first thing. And then, you might have nailed it within a day. But then you come back to it 2 weeks later and you're like, oh, it's not in my playing. Rusty. It's not, it's never going to show up in my playing because I haven't spent long enough. But obviously the way that we used to learn was you'd go to your teacher every week, and every week you do the same thing, and then you go home and practice it for another week, and you just keep going over the same thing. And it's repetition, as we know, the only way to learn properly is to keep repeating the same thing. It's how we learned to talk. It's how we learned to walk. We didn't just suddenly stand up one day and start talking and walking. It took us a few weeks of walking to actually be able to get up on our feet.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what's being lost?
I think the almost the exploration of music is being lost as well. So going to a record shop or a record store and picking up an album because that's all you could afford, and really trying to make sure that it counts.
40 CD.
And hoping that it's not a bag of shit when you get home.
Yeah.
And then seeing what's on there. What can I pick out is there anything on this that I can learn? What's that chord? What's that progression? How can I play this riff? And 9 times out of 10, you're fucking wrong. Yeah. And then there'll be somebody else at a studio or a rehearsal be like, oh no, you don't play like that. You play like this. It's like, oh,
okay, yeah, cool.
Yeah. A lot of my students don't listen to music.
That's a shame.
Which is fucking tragic. It's like, why are you?
But it is tragic because how can you be into music and not listen to it?
Well, this is, and I think hopefully this will be the last time I say it, because anyone that listens to the show regularly, I probably harp on about this every single fucking time, is that parents go, well, we need to learn an instrument. What instrument should we get them to learn? It doesn't matter which one they pick, but then the kid's also doing football on Mondays. They're doing chess club on Tuesdays. They're doing guitar lessons on Wednesdays. Then they got scouts on Thursdays, football. And it's like, you've got no time to actually get invested in any of these things. And all these things are great.
Yeah.
But you're not invested in any of them. It's just like surface level learning on all of it.
That's a good point. And I think, and I think I'm trying to think of other things that kids do that require as much time as music, because it's not, you can't see a music lesson as the same as like football practice. It's not just something you just go and do and then don't think about for the next week.
Yeah.
It's something a music lesson with someone like yourself is just the time for you to check up on their progress, really. And then they go away and have got to spend the whole week trying to improve themselves. And I think that takes a lot of self-discipline. And I don't think a lot of people have that, or kids have that. I mean,
I don't think parents realise it either.
Yeah, maybe not.
I think it's like, because I've never thought of it like that. I never thought of it as our lessons are just me checking up on you and making sure you're heading in the right direction. And I think a lot of parents, I feel, they think, or they view music as just almost like finger painting. It's like a thing that they can do to pass the time. And it's actually, if you want to be half competent at it, do you know how fucking difficult it is? Like if you wanted to become a physicist, nobody would think, or send him to physics class, but it's just a bit like, it's like finger painting. He'll do some numbers and he'll draw some lines and then he'll be a physicist, or he'll work. It's like, actually, no, you need to sort of get rid of everything else that you do.
Yeah.
And laser focus in on this, and then maybe you'll bum your way through a 12-bar blues.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's it. That's it exactly. I mean, I'm sorry if I don't want to, if you're offended by that analogy of a teacher, but that's the way I kind of
no.
see it, because I think if you're learning music, so going back to me as a kid and you as a kid and all, all of it, the majority of the learning came from myself. And that's not to do a disservice to any of my teachers, but I literally saw them once a week.
Yeah.
And they would guide me onto the next thing. So I see it like, it's just someone to answer to.
Yeah.
It's great to have a teacher. I mean, I still have a teacher. I've actually paused lessons for a while, but I still have a teacher.
Who's your teacher?
Martin Goulden.
Everyone. I've lessons. The same thing. I paused lessons about 2 or 3 months ago.
Yeah.
But
just because I went with Martin because I felt like when I was younger, obviously learning at school, my teacher would just give me tabs, and there was never any talk of technique, plectrum technique, and all the rest of it. Never spoke about it.
Yeah.
So I kind of had to figure that stuff out for myself, and I don't think I really did. And then went to college and studied jazz, and again, it wasn't. No one was talking about technique. They were talking about improvisation and how you get through these changes. So I've gone for the majority of my career, sort of not really knowing how to do technique properly. So a couple of years ago, I thought, well, I'll go to Martin for a few lessons, and he's been great. Yeah, I mean, he knows what he's talking about.
Yeah, I don't think no one has leveled up my playing as quick as he has. I don't know if it was the same. I went for alternate picking. I couldn't fucking alternate pick.
I still can't.
I just hit a ceiling, and it was pathetic. And I was like, okay, so show me what. He's like, hand position. Your hand position's wrong. Yep. Your wrist is flat against the body, and you can't. Your pick can't escape. You need to bring your wrist out so your pick can escape. And I was like, that feels really weird. He was like, I don't care. You're going to hold it like that.
That sounds like Martin.
And he said, also, your left hand's weak as fuck. I was like, oh, I think it's not. He said, it's not. It's weak as fuck. Your third finger is shit. He didn't use those exact words, but it wasn't far off.
Yeah, that's what
and
he was implying.
Just bring your hand further away from the neck and smack it as hard as you can. I was like, really? But I thought I want to make like the movement as small as possible. He said, no, not at this stage.
Yeah.
At this stage, you need to build up strength, and then we bring it closer.
Exactly.
And literally within 6 weeks, I went from fucking shit to like slightly better than fucking shit. But it wasn't just like the lessons with him. It was what I learned about how to get better.
Yeah.
It's like,
he's got a good way of, those practice drill type things that he does. I'm not going to give anything away on here. If anyone wants any lessons with him, I'm sure he's available. He is now.
Yeah.
I've paused my lessons for a while, only until the autumn. I need to get some of that stuff into my playing over the summer. Sometimes you just need to take a step back and go, okay, how's this gonna?
Yeah.
But yeah, his practice drills and the way that it all kind of makes sense once you start doing it. You're like, okay, yeah.
But then I started implementing that. I started implementing that into my students as well, and I started to take less of a repertoire focus and more of a, I'll teach you how to play the guitar. I'll also teach you how to teach yourself songs. So you can just go onto YouTube, type in whatever song you want to learn how to play, and that will be your learning. I'm going to get you to play in time, play a G chord to a click in time and tap your foot.
Yeah.
That's playing guitar.
Yeah.
Learning how to play songs for me that's kind of like a trick.
Yeah.
That's the thing. That's a magic trick. I want you to play an instrument, not play songs.
Yeah.
And that shift over the last 2 years has been massive. Like all of my beginner students, all of them can play to a click. To a certain degree, unless they've just started lessons.
That's great.
If they've had lessons for a while, I can put a click on and they can just strum, tap their foot, and keep time.
That's brilliant.
And and I've had a couple of parents like email me saying, "What song are you doing?" I was like, "We're not doing a song." He said, "Oh, well, I think you should teach him some songs." I was like, "Well, I've told him how to teach himself songs."
It's that give a man a fish thing, isn't it?
Exactly. And I said, just go on.
That's a great approach, man. And actually, I once before I quit this teaching job, I was using exactly the same approach as well. They come in with, I want to play this Billie Eilish song. It's like, okay, we'll have a look at it, but I'm not going to teach you this. I'm going to take the chord structure, show you a bit of theory about that, and maybe how we implement a capo and everything that goes into being able to play it. But I'm not going to teach you how to play it.
Yeah,
if that makes sense. Because what you're then doing is you're building a foundation level for them, which is much like Martin's approach, that you're building a foundation level and everything else builds on top of that.
Yeah.
I think that's the way to do it, man. That is.
I mean, it was a huge shift, and I started enjoying teaching as well more, especially beginners, because now when a beginner comes in, I've the next 10 weeks are already mapped out for them.
Yeah, and you'll see results pretty quickly, and they'll see results, and that's the main thing. And then they'll be motivated by that.
Yeah. What I love doing is I actually love getting kids that have been playing for a little bit, and then they come in and I go, right, this needs fixing. Like, you can't move nicely between C and G. So here's a metronome. Every 4 beats, just C to G, C to G. And you're going to do that for 20 minutes. And then hopefully when they leave the lesson, like, oh, fuck, I can move between C and G now.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's like, well, that's what I think I'm being paid for.
You are, yeah. You're on the right road, man. Definitely.
I think so. I just need that to be reaffirmed. So thank you.
Yeah, 100%. And you won't get that on YouTube.
That's
as brilliant as YouTube is, and going back to our earlier point, is what's missing. That's what's missing.
Yeah,
is someone, unless of course, I mean, I don't know if people might have an online course where they do that sort of thing, but actually sitting down, like with a proper teacher for half an hour or an hour and doing that, getting drilled on things and showing you how to practice properly. I mean, it's something that I've only learned really in the last few years, how to actually use my time efficiently. That whole kind of like just putting a click on for 5 minutes is more than enough time to get something under your fingers.
Yeah.
As long as you're doing it every day. But you don't get that training on YouTube.
No.
And that's where it doesn't really work.
Yeah. Well, I decided to use it to my advantage. Like, if every song is available to learn on YouTube, then that I don't need to do that, because you can do that. Justin's got those songs. You could go and see Andy Guitar, Marty Schwartz. They're all there. Whatever song you want to learn, they've probably got it covered. So
Yeah.
Go and learn it, and then we'll come back in and I'll tidy up the edges.
Yeah, exactly. That's great, man. Great approach.
So,
100%.
Yeah, so I just think that some parents, they don't see it like that.
No.
But I know I explained it to my wife, and she went, "No, you got to play the game. You got to kind of play the game as well, because when grandma, like you said, when grandma comes over, they want to see them play a song. So you've got to do a little bit of both."
Yeah, I think she's right, because they're paying, and ultimately kids just want to feel that they can play that song that they've always wanted to play.
Yeah,
or at least a part of it, and then they feel like they've But I don't think that should be the main focus.
Yeah,
you need to build up to that.
Yeah,
but yeah,
good,
all good.
The other thing I'm going to get you to answer is, what do you think you have left to learn?
Man,
like what's on the not necessarily what's left to learn, but what's kind of out off in the horizon that you think that's something I'm going to have a good crack at.
In terms of what, guitar playing, or just
guitar playing, or music, or anything?
Oh, Lord, I mean, I don't feel like, I think there's so much that I can't. I will. I'm at peace with the fact that I will never be able to do all the things that I want to do.
Right.
I think, because there's just not enough time to, and because I've shot myself in the foot by being a multi-instrumentalist and trying to be a producer and all the rest of it, to get good at all those things. It's a lot of time and energy. I wanted to get better at my kind of rock guitar playing. That's why I went to Martin. That's, I've just paused my lessons, but I haven't finished that journey at all.
Yeah.
And that was because there was holes in my technique, massive holes in my technique. So that's getting better, but that's still ongoing. To be honest, that's a good question, because it makes you think about where you want to go. And I think a lot of the stuff that I was talking about earlier, about getting to know myself and working out what makes me happy. And it all comes back to kind of living in the moment. A lot of that meditation type stuff is all about enjoying what you're doing at this moment in time. And that's kind of where my head's gone to, I think. I've stopped thinking too much about where I'm going and the future, and enjoying what I can do now, which is actually quite a lot. I can play the guitar and the keyboard and to whatever standard, and I can produce music, and I should be happy with that, and I am happy with that. So I think what I'm trying to say is I've stopped thinking about where I'm going with it, and getting worried about, well, I'm not so good at this, so I need to get better at it, and looking at what I'm good at now, and seeing where that takes me. Something might come up, and I said I'm doing this 1971 gig tomorrow, and a lot of tunes came up that I never even knew from that period, and that's forced me to learn something different on the keyboard.
Okay.
Which has opened another door. So I haven't actively gone out and sought that. It's just sort of gone, oh, you need to work on this. Okay, yeah, well, maybe I'll work on this thing for a while.
Okay.
Yeah, so I don't have this list of things that I want to get better at anymore. I used to. I think.
Yeah. All right. I'm going to leave it there.
Yeah.
I'm sure we're getting to past school hours.
Yeah, I've got a show to get to, so I've got to leave soon.
Okay. All right. What show are you on tonight?
Mean Girls.
Okay.
Yeah. So,
all right. Well, have fun.
Thanks, man. Great to talk to you, Tim.
It was lovely to talk to you too. Thank you for your time, and
yeah, man.
We will chat soon.
I look forward to hearing it back. Or yeah.
Yes. Cool. All right. Thanks very much.